The big story of the day undoubtedly is the fact that now the government of India is the largest shareholder in Vodafone Idea. Remember, in September last year, in order to bail out an ailing telecom industry and save them from all the interest and AGR dues, the government had given telecom companies a few options. Among them was a 4-year moratorium, which would mean a pause in the time that they have to pay their interest, penalties and other dues. And the other option was also to convert that interest on AGR and spectrum into equity. Simply put, because they owe the government money, that debt could be converted into equity, leading the government to own part of the company. Now, 2 companies have opted for that today. The big headline today was, of course, with Vodafone Idea, but towards the evening, Tata Tele also opted to go in for this alternative, leading to the government now be owning about 9.5% in Tata Tele. While Tata Tele shares rose by about 5% by end of day trade, investors didn't take too kindly to the news as far as Vodafone Idea is concerned, and the stock fell nearly 15%. What are the concerns around Vodafone? Does this really help the company? And the big picture, will this now avoid a duopoly dominated by Jio and Bharti Airtel? Will Vodafone still be a player actually in the fray after this move? We're going to be talking about all of these questions on the show, also asking what the government is going to do with the majority stake in Vodafone Idea when it wants to sell BSNL, MTNL. But first, let's take you through the news of the day. My colleague Somit is joining us for more.
Vodafone Idea has finally informed the Department of Telecommunications and the exchanges that they will be paying the interest amount on deferred spectrum liability and AGR dues in form of shares. Now, they had the option to pay this amount in cash, but they have chosen shares as an option. Now, according to the company, the interest amount is expected to be around 16,000 crore rupees, for which the company will be issuing nearly 1,600 crore new shares to the government of India, making the government the single largest shareholder in the company. And this was the first trigger for the fall in share prices. Now, if you see, this 1,600 crore new shares will be issued at face value of rupees 10, which is much below the current market price of Vodafone Idea. And because of this, the dilution is expected to be very high for retail shareholders. The government of India will hold close to 36% stake in the company. The second reason was, despite the fact that the shares are issued at a much lower value compared to the current market price, the company chose this option, which means that the company is not confident enough to generate sufficient amount of cash flows to pay this interest going forward. The third reason was, if you see, the company needs a lot of fund to grow its business, and it has already taken shareholders' approval to raise close to 25,000 crore rupees. However, nothing has been finalized on that front. Now, given the fact that the government will hold close to 36% stake in this company, Vodafone Idea could face difficulties to raise funds from new investors going forward. And even if it is able to do so in future, it would mean that the existing retail shareholders, the dilution will again be very high going forward. Along with this, if you see, this conversion is for only the interest amount. The debt of rupees 1.95 lakh crore remains on Vodafone Idea's book. Now, this debt alone of 1.95 lakh crore is very high for a company like Vodafone Idea. Other than that, if you see, the operational issues are still ongoing in the company. The company has been continuously losing active subscribers from its network. In the last 1 year, it lost close to 2.6 crore active subscribers on its network, and its ARPU, that is the average revenue per user, and the key important metric in the telecom sector, that for company is the lowest in the industry, and we have not seen any improvement in both these fronts so far. Along with that, as government of India will now be holding close to 36% stake in the company, what role will government play in this company going forward? There is no clarity on that front, and because of all these reasons, we have seen a decline in the share prices of Vodafone Idea today.
To speak on this, I'm joined now by Sanjay Kapoor, entrepreneur and TMT advisor. Hemang Jani, head equity strategist and senior group VP at Motilal Oswal, also joins us on the show today. Welcome to both of you, and thank you so much. Mr. Kapoor, great to have you back on the show on a subject we've discussed and tracked so many times over the last many months. Is this the conclusion that you thought we would finally see, with the government eventually bailing out Vodafone Idea in a sense by converting this much of its debt to equity?
So Tamanna, good evening to you and the viewers. I think when the government came out with the bailout package to make sure that the industry doesn't slip into a duopoly and remains a healthy oligopoly. These are the commitments that government made in very abnormal circumstances. If they wouldn't have done it, then the industry would have slipped to a duopoly there and then. So I think the eventuality that this could happen where the payable debt would get converted to equity was an option that was available with operators. For example, Airtel didn't opt for it. Voda-Idea has opted for it. But I think it's a clear signal that Voda, given its business model and given its balance sheet, has not been able to garner enough attraction from investors in the market to par any debt or to grow the business. So I think this is a last probable option left with them and with the government. I don't think for government it's a very healthy option to pursue, because government's own track record of running telecom companies is not too great. So I think this is really to protect the industry, and government has done its bit. But I'm afraid that Voda, as of now, doesn't have enough pulling power in the market where they can attract monies for growing their current business and then transforming the business from 4G to 5G in the near future. So I think all this put together left them with no option but to opt for this.
You know, if you look at the data that TRAI puts out every month on how subscribers are moving, and you see that Vodafone has been bleeding subscribers quite consistently. Hemang, do you think one of the reasons why investors weren't too excited about this option is that they don't necessarily see this as a lifeline for Vi?
Yeah, Tamanna, what we feel is that the best case scenario for Vodafone Idea would have been that the company would have got some sort of a bailout from the government so that they can continue their operations for, let's say, next 3 to 4 years. And in the meantime, if they would have been able to raise funds, let's say initially to the tune of about 25,000 crore, that would have really helped them along with the higher ARPU to be in the game and avoid any major market share loss and gradually meeting the financial liability that they have. But in this particular scenario, wherein the government will become almost about 35% stakeholder to begin with, and the fact that the current operating profit and the debt that Vodafone Idea is sitting on is not going to be easy for them to manage, and that, which means that the market share loss is going to be quite significant, and eventually company will have to basically give out the large part of the customers to the remainder of the two players. So this is not a best case scenario as I see it.
Hemang, why then the different outlook towards Tata Tele, and what is the path that you see for Vodafone Idea right now? They have got reprieve from the government, yes. They have opted for the moratorium as well. At least they're still in the game. What is the upward trajectory from them? What are the possibilities?
So for Vodafone Idea, our view has been very clear that at least they've got some lifeline, so the company will not have immediate risk of insolvency or shutting down. But at the same time, I think because of the fact that 20% ARPU increase, which let's say most of the companies have taken, is not enough to really help Vodafone in a major way, given the fact that their annual commitments in terms of the interest and the repayment is almost about 25,000 crore, whereas the operating profit is far less at this point of time. So we think that the company will survive, and government is also trying its best to see that it does not default. But to be in the competition, to regain the market share or to retain the customer base that they have, the financial wherewithal that is required is completely missing. So we think that it will remain like a typical, laggard company, any PSU company, and the rest of the guys will probably take over the market share.
Yeah, so it essentially has become another PSU company, and that's sort of an interesting way to look at it. Mr. Kapoor, you pointed out that the government didn't really have too many options when it put this offer forward. It was either this or allow Vodafone Idea to shut down completely. But now that they have come in as majority shareholder, and that essentially means we, the taxpayers of India, are majority shareholders in the company. What next from the government's perspective? Are we going to hold on to this possibly dead weight for some time now?
So yes, if you go by the track record of the government in running BSNL and MTNL, it doesn't instill any confidence that the government has the wherewithal to turn around Vodafone and make it profitable. I personally think with what government has done, there's a lot of spirit involved outside the letter to have bailed out the industry. And I think it is for the Vodafone promoters and management to make sure that they don't give up this whole attempt of reviving this company, whether it's uplifting prices and as a result uplifting their EBITDA margins and their ARPUs. It's absolutely paramount to be on that trajectory, to be competitive in the market and give them a fair chance. The government might be shareholders of this company and majority shareholders, but they do not have the wherewithal to run this company. Now, the only options that the government could have is either they find somebody to buy the stake out from the government, but that will only happen if there is some leeway going forward. And from now till the end of the moratorium, there are many policy decisions that are going to happen. There are going to be policy decisions on the spectrum pricing. There are going to be more decisions on AGR, right of way, SUC. Now, all these have to be industry-friendly decisions so that attractiveness of the stake in Vodafone goes up over the next 2-3 years. Because as Hemang said, none of us is expecting them to shut down operations in the meanwhile. They'll carry on, they'll attempt, right? But it is for the promoters and management of the company to make a case out of this, not the government. You can't expect the government to make a case out of it. Government has done their bit. And I think that can only happen, A, with the government policies that fall right over the next 3-4 years, and B, the management gets a hang of how to, and what is the strategy to follow to make this company competitive. I agree with Hemant that there's no hope in hell that they will be equal shareholders in the market with Jio and Airtel. I think we are a oligopoly now with 2 leading players and 1 distant third player in the market. But even as a distant third player in the market, they could make a case out of it and make sure that the government's equity doesn't get decimated to zero.
We have to look at the wider context of this, Mr. Kapoor, and that was to revive the telecom industry in India, which had seen player after player being completely decimated, and we getting, shutting shop or having to shut shop would have sent out a signal that foreign telecom players can't really survive in India at all. Do you think some of that damage has now been reversed? Or will we continue with the situation where we, as you're saying, will survive for now, but have the other big two players chipping away at its share bit by bit? And what does it mean for customers?
So yes, it is both positive and negative. I think the first step that the government took in announcing a package and then subsequent actions that came out, I think were all friendly from an industry perspective. And forget us guys, all the captains of the industry gave a salutation to what the government did. So I hope and believe that they all genuinely believe that what the government did was right for the industry. And if that is right, then that's a great signal that went out. But the taste of the pudding is in eating it. And the moment, you see how Voda is performing despite those bailout packages, they don't have really a bankable business case going forward, at least on the existing ARPUs, existing prices, existing debt on the balance sheet. So given all those odds, no matter what you tell the outside world, it is saying that such a large market doesn't have enough room for a third operator to be profitable. Now that can only go away when that operator really turns profitable and viable going forward. And given the odds that the company is facing today, that doesn't seem likely. Plus, the hangover of 5G. Don't underestimate the investments that are required to even compete in 5G. You need 100 megs of spectrum. You need a lot of fiberization. You need IP networks. You need more towers. where is the depth in this company to invest in all that and then compete with the two guys who are leading the market? So when you weigh all that, if I'm a guy who's got to put money in this company, I will be worried to say, how am I going to get my capital back? Yes, government has taken a haircut and probably government will, have to forego whatever equity they have. But will a private guy do it? Till really the conditions of the company going forward really spell out viability and competitiveness.
Yeah, so Vodafone has been given an extension of life in a sense with support from a ventilator, but the company still has to get up and walk away from the kind of sickness that its balance sheet is facing. That would be an analogy perhaps of the times. Thank you so much, Sanjay Kapoor and Hemang Jani, for joining us today and putting in perspective the big corporate story of the day.
Thank you.